Today I'm looking at this Master Rotor AR-303 3-wire antenna rotor. I bought this through Ham Radio Outlet, and on their website they call it a HyGain AR-303, but when it came in the box it was called a Master Rotor, so whatever. Either way, what it is a light-duty antenna rotor. So I'm going to pull it out of the box here and see what's inside. So I got some foam. And here are the instructions, and a bag of mounting hardware, U-bolts and things like that. And the next thing to come out is the rotor box here. Just a simple rotator control. More foam, which is broken, and the rotor itself. Okay. Now this is really designed mostly for like television antennas or maybe a small 2-meter antenna. I'm going to use this on a 5-element 6-meter antenna, which may be a little bit much for this thing, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. I think it'll be okay. I'm going to start off with these threaded rods, and you can see here that the one end of the threaded rod is flat, and the other end has a slot in it for a screwdriver. So the first thing that I'll do is take the nuts, the 4 nuts that were supplied that don't have lock washers attached, just the plain nuts, and I'm going to thread them on to the flat end of each rod and work it in maybe an inch, inch and a half or so, maybe about midway. Okay, so now that I've got those nuts on, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of the rods, and with the flat end facing towards the rotor body, I'm going to thread them into these 4 threaded studs in the rotor. And I'll tighten this in by hand until I can't get it to go anymore, and then I'll use a screwdriver here in the slotted end and just tighten that up until it seats in the bottom of the bore. Okay, now that those studs are in place, I'm going to snug the nuts up against the body of the rotor, and I'm just going to finger tighten those for now, just because I don't have a wrench handy. I'll have to do this after, but they're just finger tight for now. The next thing that I'll do is slip the clamps over, and there are 4 clamps supplied, and 3 of them are the same. They're sort of the smaller ones, and then there's one larger one that's designed for guy wires if you need them for your application. So I will put the larger clamp on the bottom bracket and one of the smaller clamps on the top bracket, and then I will take 4 of the nuts with the integrated lock washer and just thread those onto the shaft a little bit just so they're on there and hold the brackets on. Next I'm going to take the 2 U-bolts that were supplied, and I will put those through the holes in the top part of the rotor, like that. And then I will take the other 2 remaining small brackets, just put them on the U-bolts like that, and then take the remaining 4 lock nuts, or nuts with the integrated lock washer, and just thread those on the U-bolts just enough to keep the clamp from falling off. The next thing that I'll do is connect the rotor wire to the rotor and the control box, which I've pulled out of the plastic here. And you can see that actually says HyGain on it. I'll connect this up and just test everything on the bench here before I put it up in the air, just to make sure everything's working. This rotor wire I didn't get this with the rotor. I got this separately on Amazon, as it was a little bit cheaper to get it through Amazon than it was to get it through ham radio outlet. So what I'll do here is just find the ends of it for now and strip back the wires and connect it to the rotor. Okay, you can see there I've got both ends stripped and ready to go. So now I'll just kind of set this over here for a second. And now I'll open up the base of the rotor by just unscrewing this single screw. And now the base just pivots out, and the screw is captive here so it won't fall out. That's kind of nice. The next thing I'll do is pull this grommet, whoops, that kind of flew out, pull out this wire grommet for now. When I do the final installation, I'm going to want to thread the wire through here, but for now I'm just going to get it out of the way. And I'll pull another length of the wire out of the loop here, and just kind of run this in here loosely. Now you can see here on the rotor that the terminals, maybe you can't see it, I don't know if the camera's focusing, but the terminals are numbered 1, 2, and 3. So I want to keep track of which color goes with which number. I guess I'll do them in the order that they are now, black, red, and green. Okay, and you can see there I've got the wires installed in the base there, if I can keep everything lined up for a minute. Just tightened on those screws, and then now I'll kind of get it free of the rotor body there, and now I will connect it to the bottom of the rotor box. And you can see on the rotor box there are 3 similar screws under this plastic clip that are labeled 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to pull this clip out of here and try not to break it or fling it. I'll set that aside. And again, I'm not going to run this through the strain relief or any of that right now. I just want to connect it in the right order. Okay, so I've got those connected, you can see, and now that everything is connected up, I'm going to plug the rotor box in. I'll set the rotor up. I think I'll leave that unscrewed for now. Set the rotor up here, and now I'll plug in the rotor box and make sure everything works. Okay, you can see when I plugged it in there, it just started a little bit. So now I'll just turn the control here. And it looks like everything's working. It sounds good, no binding. It stopped when it was supposed to. So I'll let it go around a full rotation and then back again just to make sure everything is the way that it should be. Okay, you can see here that it's done one full rotation, and it's not quite perfectly lined up when it kind of goes all the way around. It doesn't actually go all the way around to the exact position it was in, but I think that's typical for these lower end, cheaper, you know, TV type antenna rotors. That's kind of what you would want, what you would expect, I guess, from those. So now I'll just rotate it one more time around and just make sure nothing's binding or any of that. And now that it's gone back all the way around, it kind of is back where it started. It's lined up with the main brackets, so that's where it should be. Now that I've verified that everything is good, I'll disconnect it and get ready to put it up on the antenna mast. You can see here I've got my rotor sort of prepped and ready to go. I've got the top mast bolted on here, and that's all tightened up, and I've got the wire kind of inserted here and hooked up to the terminals there. I've got black on number 1, green on number 2, and red on number 3. So I figured I'd get this all together now so I didn't have to do it up on the roof, and it would make it easier to carry up. The one last thing that I'm going to do is, this isn't really sealed up on the bottom or anything, so it's not like it's weatherproof on the bottom, but on the side here there's a grommet, and it's not quite holding the wire. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of this coax seal and just kind of put it in there just to help hold the wire in place so that it provides a little bit more of a strain relief than what's there. Here you can see I've just got the blob of coax seal in there. It's kind of on the wire and inside the grommet, but mostly inside here. And like I said, that'll provide just a little bit of strain relief, not so much weatherproofing, but strain relief for that. So I'll just tighten this down and then carry everything up on the roof. You can see here that I've got my M squared 6M5X. I think that's the model number. I've got that loosened up, and it was just bolted up here in a fixed location and pointed east so I could talk to some local guys. But I've loosened it up now and kind of lowered it on the existing mast pipe, and I've brought up an extra length of coax to use as a service loop for when the thing rotates so it doesn't bind up. So what I'm going to do next is put the rotor assembly up here on the pipe, or on the mast rather, and bolt it down. Okay, you can see here what I've done now is I've actually loosened this whole pipe. I've got the antenna completely off, as you can see there, and I've taken the whole pipe off and turned it around. What I didn't realize when I started is that these pipes have a notch in the tapered end, and the way this pipe was oriented, I had the tapered end down at the bracket there, and the straight end was up here. But the reason for this notch, and again I didn't realize that at first, was that there is a tab in the rotor body that slips into that notch. You can see it right there. And what that does is it helps kind of anchor the rotor and keep it from spinning on the brackets, but it also helps to orient north. So what I'll do now is get my compass and try and point this thing as best I can. Okay, you can see here I've got my compass set on the peak of the roof, and I've got it pointed more or less north here. And if I look in this direction, that is about even with that wheelbarrow that's kind of sitting over there. But that's magnetic north, and where I am here in Connecticut, I need to kind of orient it a little bit off of north, or off of magnetic north to find true north. I need to go about 14 degrees or so this direction. So that should be fairly close. It's not exact, but again, this isn't an exact project. So if I leave it about like that and figure that that's true north, when I look up, it's going to be more or less with that large rock and old wicker chair there. So kind of in that direction should be true north, and that's about what I'll try to aim for here with my orient. you can see here I've got the rotor mounted up on the pipe, and here's the tab into the notch that I was talking about. So I've got these nuts all tightened up. This thing is all secure to this pipe. But the pipe is still free to rotate a little bit. I've got to go down below and tighten the nuts on the eave bracket there. But anyway, I've got it more or less oriented the right way. Might not be perfect, but again, close enough for this project. So I will tighten up those nuts now down there and lock this into place so that I can put the antenna on. Okay, and here's just a shot showing the back side of the mast and everything, and here's the eave bracket that I'm about to tighten up. Well, you can see here I've got the antenna bolted up on the rotor, and I've got it real close to the rotor body just to try and help minimize the load on this thing. And this thing is actually a little less sturdy than I thought it would be. You can see here I'm standing right about here. I'm just going to push this with my finger, and you can hear it just kind of spinning the rotor. So there's a little bit more load on here than I thought maybe there would be. So I'm not sure if this is really going to work all that well, especially in a high wind. On a day like today, I think it would be fine. I think it'll turn it at I think the rotor will turn this fairly well. I think the antenna itself is fairly light. It's just so long that it's got a very big moment arm, I guess is what it would be called, where you can just kind of spin everything real easily here. Okay, now you can see here I'm on the ground, and all of a sudden I can hear like an F-15 or something flying over too, so maybe that'll come in the shot. But at any rate, I've got it ready to be tested here, and you can kind of see the antenna is a little bent, and it was like that when I got it. I got this thing used at a Hamfest a while back and tried to straighten it out as best I could and put it up there. So this is by no means, a perfect antenna installation, but at any rate, I've got everything up enough to test. I've got some zip ties, holding the coax there. It's not quite the way I would want it, but it's good enough for the test. And then you can see I've got the rotor wire connected to the box out here and to an extension cord, and just wired up loosely for now. And I'll go ahead and give this thing a test. Hopefully you can hear me talking over that F-15 or whatever it is that's flying over, but it's awful. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a spin, and you can probably hear it. And there you can see the rotor seems to be turning the antenna just fine. It's like I thought. The antenna's not real heavy, so it ought to be able to cope with the weight no problem. It's just that when it gets windy, I don't think that rotor has enough staying power or braking power to hold it from spinning around. And it's either going to spin around up there in the wind, or it's going to break the rotor, or both. Okay, so you can see the rotors come right around 360 degrees, and the box has stopped where it should. So now, just for the sake of it, I'm going to spin this back around the other way 360 degrees. Okay, and there it is. It's come right back around to north and stopped the way that it should. I guess I'm going to end the video here for today, just because I've run out of time for the moment. Hopefully this video was helpful. If you feel like leaving a comment or subscribing, feel free to do so. And as always, thank you for watching.